Hey, everybody, I'm Jon Meyers from Right Better Together. We're interrupting the internet. It's Emily Brooks.
All of it.
All of it, the entire internet. Emily, you don't like when we interrupt the internet, but you're here for it.
But we have to, because we're going to be having a webinar
Yes.
in February.
How to stay motivated.
Yes, which really is kind of what our book is all about. So we have a lot to say about how to stay motivated.
7 Central, 8 Eastern. These are PM. Don't get up too early in the morning.
Oh, no, we are not going to be there.
7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific in California.
Perfect. If you want to join us, you can sign up on our website by going to our contact page at rightbettertogether.com/contact, filling out the form and putting February webinar in the subject line.
That's what you do.
Yep. And that'll make sure that we send you the link, and we hope to see you there.
I'll be there.
Same.
Welcome, everybody, to Right Better Together. I'm Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, Jon Meyers.
Hey, what's up? What are we talking about today?
We have quite the guest.
Do we have quite the list?
We do have quite the list.
Cool.
Starting with quite the guest. We have Jamie Ogle, author of Love and Treason. So I just finished this book, and so I'm so excited to have this conversation, because this is a historical fiction / Christian fiction novel, and I have so many questions about how she researches, how she portrays God in Christian fiction, like just so many questions. So excited to talk with her. And
the craziest thing happened with her. It's February 11th, and her second book comes out today.
Yes.
And we didn't plan that.
Yes, her second book, As Sure as the Sea, comes out today.
Today.
So
go buy it so we can take credit for the first day sales.
And I should mention this.
Yes.
3 days from now is Valentine's Day.
Oh my goodness.
And this book, Love and Treason, is about Saint Valentine.
Oh.
So it's fascinating if you haven't delved into the history of Valentine's Day. She talks about it some in the episode, so I think it's a great way to remember what Valentine's Day is really about. Highly recommend. And I read it. I didn't write it. Wow. I read it this month. So also you can read it anytime. It doesn't have to be Valentine's Day, but
so that's 3 days from now.
Yeah.
I better find someone to love or to commit treason with. I got 3 days.
All right. I didn't finish quite the list. Before that, we're going to have listener response. After Jamie's conversation, she's going to give you all a new call to action that you can respond to. We're going to have a Hey Jon Meyers segment where I teach Jon Meyers something. And then we're going to have the final act where we play a silly game. Oh my goodness. And somewhere in there, we're going to learn why babies cry.
Oh, yeah. We are.
So how did you get out of your bubble?
You're going first, ma'am.
Oh, I'm going first.
Because mine is, there's no way to top mine.
Okay. So I have gotten out of the house. You know, when we talk about getting out of the bubble, that's, you know, I've gotten out of the house. But I really wanted to talk about how I started writing a book this week. Because, so, like, forever ago, I was like, I'm going to write a book on nourishment for Christians, mind, body, spirit. And I wrote some blog posts about it. And I have been brainstorming it, outlining it for a while. And I finally, I wrote the first chapter.
Wow, that's cool.
And it came out, so smoothly. And, I feel really good about it. I feel like it's right.
Lovely.
Not in a braggy way, but it just feels right.
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's exciting news.
Yeah, I was really excited to work on that. Also, it has been feeling like spring lately. So I did spend the other day on my porch in the sun because I love it. I love the sun when it comes back. I love watching the birds. Winnie loves the sun. It's been a good time.
Did you see any juncos?
Oh, yes. We saw the juncos.
You saw pelicans.
Yeah, I talked about that last time.
Oh, that's where I heard it, on this show.
Next week I'll be in Florida, so I'll probably see pelicans there too.
Oh, bring a pelican on the show.
I would love that if it were possible.
Poke the camera out the window so we can see you're really in Florida.
It's more likely there would be a bear. Because there are bears. And I wanted to see one last time and I didn't. So I want to see one.
Okay, when I think of Florida, I don't think of bears. I think of pelicans and alligators and Mickey Mouse.
Our friends, they have bears who come in and like try to raid their trash cans. So
come in their house?
No, but like in their yard. Florida's scary.
Interesting.
So how did you get out of your bubble?
Listen to this. First of all, I have an opportunity to clean up one from 2 months ago where I told the story about the woman who abused my head while she gave me a haircut. Remember that story? Yeah. And she was just so mean to my head and you thought she was new. Well, guess what? Got a haircut on Friday. Tell me how beautiful it looks.
Sorry, I was taking a sip of water. Beautiful.
And it was the same woman who was still just as abusive to my poor little head.
Why did you have the same person?
There was no choice. That literally she was the only one there. I had to wait an hour to be abused by her. But that's not my point. My point was I told that whole story last time. I won't repeat it because it was the same story. I had bruises by the time I left. I hope she doesn't watch this podcast. But I forgot to make the writing point when I told the story 2 months ago. So now I can make the point to make the writing point. And so the point is when you're writing, so I go to the same place to get a haircut all the time. And so this is the first time I got the same person ever in my history of going there. And of course it had to be the tough and rough and tumble woman. So I left. You've seen me, audience. Emily, you've seen me with a haircut. They always look the same. Yeah. But 2 of we've been doing this for, let's say 8 months. I don't know, 9 months. So that's 8 or 9 haircuts. 2 of them have been rough. The rest have been perfectly gentle, but all at the same place. They always look the same. So when the reader is reading a chapter, as you know, when we wrote our book, some of them were hard to write. Some of them are really rough and to go through. And some of them, just like what the story that you just told with your book, that your first chapter just flowed out and it went smoothly. The reader doesn't know that. The reader is impacted by chapter 3 just as much as they are by chapter 6. And one of them could have been written in 5 minutes and one could have been written in 5 days. The reader has no idea of the process of how grueling it is on the author.
That's fascinating.
It is. And
I believe it because like Wendy, like I never read a chapter and I'm like, oh, Brandon Sanderson must have been having a bad day, you know?
And then Jamie Ogle talked about how hard the second book was. Yeah. And how hard it was to get out. But we wouldn't have known that unless we watched her on this podcast. We would have enjoyed the story just like you. Yeah, just like you enjoyed the first one.
Yeah.
All right. So ask me why I got a haircut.
Do I even need to ask?
Yeah, you need to ask.
Why did you get a haircut?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. Because on Sunday, I went to, really out of the bubble, remember when you went to a renewal of the vows?
Yes.
I went to the renewal of the vows to celebrity screenwriter Bob Sines.
Oh, precious.
And his lovely wife, Margie. It was their 50th wedding anniversary. So sweet. And he invited 50 of his closest friends. And so the dinner was all planned and there was like a reception and everything, but supposedly, and I believe him, the renewal of the vows was to surprise Margie. And there was a wedding cake and everything. Isn't that sweet? And so here is,
speaking of Valentine's Day, goodness.
Yes, I know, it's perfect. And so there they are renewing their vows. That's Pastor Clay Baggett. Do you know who Clay Baggett's father is?
No.
Did you ever see The Apostle with Robert Duvall, that movie?
No, I didn't.
Robert Duvall plays Clay Baggett's father in that movie.
What?
Or a
That's
character
wild.
based on Clay Baggett's father. And Clay Baggett's father he's rest in peace, rest his soul. He is actually in like the front row in one of the pews when Robert Duvall's giving this shaking sermon and based on one of Clay Baggett's father's real sermons. How about that?
That's amazing. Wow.
But wait, there's more.
Oh my goodness.
So I walk in and I hear, "Hey, Jon Meyers." And we had Jamie Ogle was coming. We met her at WriterCon, right? We had a WriterCon reunion with future guest Sheila Gunlock. She was there.
Sheila.
And her husband was there. We got to talk about business the whole time. And I gave her a second master class for free. And so I answered a bunch of her questions. And she's working on her podcast. Her book, she wanted me to, because I said I was going to say this, I was my getting out of the bubble story. Her book, Groovy Granny and the Food Fight, was #1 on Amazon in her category since we met her. Yep, since you met her last September, and so we'll talk about more of that when she comes on in a few weeks. We're recording that on March 18th. I don't remember, it comes out in April or something. There you go.
Well,
how's that for getting out of the bubble?
Congratulations, Bob and Margie. That is so sweet.
Yep.
I love that.
He was so,
and also hi to Sheila.
You look at him and he just loves her so much.
It's adorable.
So much. Alrighty.
Speaking of love, we have listener responses.
Oh, we have some love from a listener.
We had a really kind message from Lauren.
Lauren,
who made
crochet person who
she crochets things.
She made us these.
We'll share her link in the show notes.
In our company colors right here.
Mm-hmm.
And Lauren says, "Hello, Jon and Emily. Hey, my name is Jon Meyers. I hope you're both doing well. It's been a while since we talked, and I got your Christmas card the other day, and it reminded me of you guys. You both have accomplished a lot this past year, and I'm very happy for both of you. Congratulations on your pregnancy, Emily. Sincerely, Lauren Hood."
Thank you, Lauren.
Isn't she sweet?
That's so sweet.
We can thank future guest Kirsten Modglin for this letter from Lauren, because had we not sent the Christmas card, which we got the idea from Kirsten, that's what triggered this one. So look how everything is. Look at the synchronicity.
Spreading the love.
Yep.
Let me introduce you all to Jamie Ogle, who we met at WriterCon. She was a speaker there.
Speaking of WriterCon.
And she was great. So that's obviously why we had her on.
Our book signing was at the same time hers was.
Jamie Ogle is a pre-dawn writer, homeschool mom by day, and a reader by night. Inspired by her fascination with the storied history of faith, she writes historical fiction infused with hope, adventure, and courageous rebels. A Minnesota native, she now lives in Iowa with her husband and their 3 children, and she can usually be found gardening, beekeeping, and tromping through the woods. Man, I love that. I feel like we have so much in common. She also recently won the Christy Award for Love and Treason. And then, like we said, her next book, As Sure as the Sea, comes out today. Yep. About St. Nikolas. So be excited for that. So here is our conversation with Jamie Ogle.
And we're back. I'm still Jon Meyers. Hey, look, everybody. It's still Emily Brooks.
Hi, Jon Meyers. And hey, look, everybody. It's Jamie Ogle.
Oh, my God.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Before.
I'm excited to be here with you guys.
I've sat 6 feet away from her before.
Yes. We're sitting very close together.
With you in between us. You're our first Iowa guest.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Like a lot of the people who were at WriterCon are from like Oklahoma City. And so I'm always curious, like who traveled to get there and stuff. So,
yep, I drove there. It wasn't actually a bad drive. It was pretty nice. It wasn't too bad.
That's nice. He drove there as well. I flew.
I like the drive. I think it's very, I mean, I'm driving from east of there, but it's a very relaxing drive.
Speaking of WriterCon, while you were there, you were talking about writing your book. And so I, of course, bought it, Love and Treason. And I just finished it, and I'm super excited to talk about this. So we have yet to talk to someone who writes historical fiction, as well as Christian fiction, at least in this genre. And so I'm really curious about your research process, because as I was reading this, the details that you pull out are so vivid when you're describing this place. And so this takes place in Rome. Like 80 to 70, it says.
Yep.
But I felt like just even like the names of the restaurants and the sights and the smells and the food that they eat, all of it is so vivid. And so I'm curious how much of that comes from like, this is research fact versus I kind of had to make up some of these details to make it come to life.
A lot of the details in there are historical fact, just from visiting Rome and walking through the ruins and the markets and stuff like that. And then a lot of it is, the food is historical. There are cookbooks from that era. And I tried to experiment with some recipes. Was not successful in a lot of them. So I just had to write like they were really good. Because I didn't make them taste very good. So I'm sure it was me. But a lot of it was historical fact. And then just, I don't know. I felt like when I visited Rome before it was published, so I was able to put in a lot of more details from just being there. And obviously it's not the same now as it was then, but
more preserved than like a lot of, I mean, I haven't been there, but like it's pretty neat that you could still see some of these really ancient places.
Yeah, it was really powerful to be there and to walk down a street and be like, oh my goodness, I have a scene right here. Like this is what they would have, they would have seen that building in its full glory. And I don't know, that was really fun. And I like to zoom in really close to like in the scene and just pick out a few things, a few details to list. And I don't know. I love the details and the descriptions.
Before we get any farther, did you try to cook like over a fire or like when you were doing the recipe?
No, I didn't. So that's probably why they didn't taste good.
So this is a true story. I know someone that did that and cooked it over a fire, like made linguine or fettuccine from scratch, right? Cooked it over a fire, and then in the old cookbook, like what you said, it had to be hung on a bush outside for it to like air dry in the sun. And so she did that, like hung it outside on a bush, and then it was not edible by the time she brought it back in the house.
I love that firsthand experience, though. It actually reminds me that shortly after I followed you on Instagram, I got a recommended video from a guy who does like ancient recipes and like historical recipes, and I'm pretty sure it was because of you, because it said that you followed him, and he was making like date balls or something, like something with dates, because there's a lot of things in his recipes.
I did try those. That was a good one. I mean, you can't go wrong with dates.
Yeah,
and honey.
It's pretty much dessert. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I think food is so important in our fiction. I've realized there's something comforting about reading about food for me and people making food, but it also just feels like you are entering more deeply into their lives for me.
Yeah, I think so too. You're right there in the kitchen with them. You're experiencing real life.
So I just read your afterword as well, where you say that you were never a fan of Valentine's Day.
Nope.
So do you want to talk about that a little bit of like how you kind of came to write this book?
Yeah.
About Valentine?
Yeah, of all things. No, I just I never liked it. I didn't know a lot about the origin story. So I just saw this very commercialized holiday, and I don't like people telling me what to do. So like now there's this holiday telling me I got to buy stuff for people to show that I love them. I'm like, I don't like that. So I was trying to make this case to my husband, but like, we should not celebrate this holiday, right? So I'm like, well, I need to like do some research here and figure out why is this even a thing, right? So I started digging in and just finding these little bits of the story about this rebel priest who starts to marry people in secret when there's a marriage ban going on, and he falls in love with the daughter of a jailer. And I was like, what? Where is this movie? Where's the book? Like, I want to read this story. And
this needs to be a movie. I hope they adapt this book into a movie.
That would be amazing. But yeah, I just kind of got swept away with this story, and kept digging more and discovering like, okay, what's going on in Rome at this time? And it just spiraled into book research. And all of a sudden I had this story playing in my head, and I started writing it down. So I never actually came back and, delivered my, like, we should not celebrate this holiday speech to my husband.
Does it change though how you celebrate the holiday, or how you? I mean, it's definitely going to change things for me. Because I'm kind of the same way. I'm always a little skeptical of Valentine's Day. I'm like, it's a Hallmark holiday. It's like the holiday that they just want to sell stuff. But this really opens your eyes to like, there's a lot to really celebrate here from this.
Yeah. I mean, I still don't love like the commercial aspect of it, but the story just kind of, I didn't really mean it to. Like, I didn't write this story thinking this is going to have this theme and this theme and this theme. I just started writing, and those things just happened. So the way this story kind of explores all different kinds of love. It's love between family members, love between friends, romantic love, just what sacrificial love looks like. It's love in all of its forms, really. And I think that was kind of a powerful thing to write about and explore. So yeah, it does change. Just, okay, how can we go forward? There's this holiday, how can I show love to someone else? And maybe it really is giving them a card or something, but maybe it's something else too, just showing up when they need you, or different ways. So
yeah,
this is like Lee Strobel's case for Christ. She went to disprove the thing, and then it converted her into a fan of the thing. Amazing.
But it is interesting how the commercial side can kind of take over. Like, it's kind of like St. Patrick's Day, right? There's so much beauty in the background of these holidays that doesn't really get talked about much.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that this book exists for people to like dive into this story.
Well, it was fun to write and fun to experience it and be humbled and have my mind changed.
Yeah, for sure.
At what point did that happen? At what point, like, were you a month into it or a year into it where you're like, oh, I'm humbled now? Like, what was the point where you realized you were being humbled?
It was probably the moment I like first read this is what it actually was about. It was about this, guy who stood firm in his faith and began marrying couples in secret. And then I was like, oh, oops. Okay.
That's great. All right. I interrupted Emily. Go ahead.
So you have a new book that did it just come out or is it about to come out?
It's about to come out. It will. It releases the 11th, so February 11th.
Okay, awesome. So is this from the same time period, or how did you choose, your next book?
So the next one, when you pitch books, you have to pitch multiple. So I was just kind of looking around for, what else in this type of story where I could dig behind something that we all know and find the story behind it. And I looked into St. Nicholas and found out he lived only about 30 to 40 years after St. Valentine. So I was like, oh, well, that seems like a very easy story to segue into. So this one goes into the Greek side of the Roman Empire and explores the legends behind Nikolas of Myra, who, turns into Santa Claus eventually somewhere down the line, but we don't go there.
I was going to say, is this a Christmas book?
No. No, some people have asked me, like, I'm really confused about your St. Nicholas book because it shows a girl in a boat on the ocean and it looks really tropical.
But that's so funny. Yeah, because I didn't know either.
Right? You intentionally made that cover, right? I'm guessing to distance it from Christmas.
Yeah, I mean, he grew up on the shores of the Mediterranean and, on the beach with white. I mean, this like the most beautiful beaches in the world. So it's like, well, we have to bring that in. So yeah, it looks very different, but yeah, it is definitely not a Christmas story, even though you'll see some hints at who he becomes later on. But
I love that. That's very exciting. And it seems like you are drawn to a certain time period. And I think I remember you talking about that at WriterCon too, that like even in creative writing classes, you were writing about this time period. So has it always been that way, or like what drew you to this time period to begin with?
Well, really, I'm always been drawn to stories of, this is going to sound bad, but like dark times in history where like things are not going well, because it makes me wonder, like, well, I mean, people lived during these times, like the Black Plague and all these things that were horrible. And how did they get through that? How did they get through and come to the other side and live and be like normal functioning human beings after going through something horrific like that? What does that look like? And where do you find hope in situations like that? So I've always been kind of drawn to those times in history, because you can always find these amazing stories of people who just came through it and fought through it and were these amazing beacons of hope for other people. And so I feel like with Of Love and Treason, we have this kind of dark moment in history, and we have Valentine standing up and as this beacon of hope. And the same thing in As Sure as the Sea, which is my next book. It's during the worst persecution in Christian history, and it's a very dark time, but we see Nikolas standing up and offering hope and love to those around him. And I just think those stories are really powerful. A lot of them have happened in the Roman Empire. So it just kind of seemed a natural place to sit and start my writing career. And we'll see. Maybe someday I'll get to, expand out into other eras, but I enjoy the Roman Empire for right now. So.
Well, that's interesting how even like your second book like stems from your first book. And I think sometimes we don't always know when we're writing a book how it's going to influence our career.
Yeah.
Do you think that if you had like, if this book wasn't published when it was and you were planning your second book, would you have thought like, okay, I need to do something that's within that, that people are going to expect? Or do you feel like you would have been more willing to stray? Because I know that, we have to consider our careers and what readers are looking for.
Yeah. When I was writing this, I mean, I wrote it over a span of like 6 to 8 years. So it was a long process. I was, having kids and that kind of took up some time too. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And when I started the journey of trying to find an agent and a publisher and all that, I was told again and again, like, nobody wants this era. It's not a good time period. It's a weird time period. Like, just maybe don't. So, after a year and a half of rejections, I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to go, write a story, same kind of themes of, hope and dark times, and set it in a different era. And, maybe that'll be different. So I went to very early colonial America and wrote a story there, tried to, find an agent that way. Nope. Still not, still not a good era apparently. So, but then I was kind of also querying of Love and Treason on the side. And I really did love this other story, but, of Love and Treason was the one that eventually kind of won out. And I think that one is just, it's kind of a heart story for me. It was the thing that it changed me and it challenged me to write it more than anything else. And I didn't want to give that one up. And it seemed like everybody was wanting me to give it up except for this, my agent right now. And she was pretty much the only one who believed in it that I could see. And, so we went with it. And 2 months later we had a publishing contract, which is just insane from hearing all this time that nobody wanted this era. So it was it was definitely a God thing, but also just kind of shows that if you're passionate about something and you're willing to wait and work for it, that, it'll eventually pay off and come around. So
I'm glad you said that it's a God thing, because that's a perfect lead into my next question. So you don't know this, but this is airing on February 11th, and which is when your book is coming out, the day that your book is coming out, right? You just said the 11th.
Yep.
And we didn't orchestrate that. We've been 6 weeks, 8 weeks ahead on guests, and we've booked guests 6 months in advance, but we just booked you because we had this opening that came up, and you're like, yeah, let's do it. And then it was for the one that would we moved one back to put you on the 11th because you were more recent, and that would go right before Valentine's Day. But your new book's coming out on the day you wound up, so that can only be and that's happened on this show a couple times. That can only be Holy Spirit orchestrated.
For sure.
Yeah, because we could have called anyone, but we liked you, and so we called you from WriterCon. And so my question is, what other moments like that, like you winding up with that agent is one of them. What other moments have you had in the last year like that?
So many little ones. And then Of Love and Treason in November won the Christy Award for Best Historical Romance of 2024. So that was like kind of, it floored me, honestly, because going from 2 years of being like, no, nobody wants this story. This isn't
nobody wants
no
it.
good. Nobody will read it. There's no market for it. No, no, constantly to like, I get a yes and then another yes. And like, okay, but for real though, like, are you guys the crazy ones and everybody else is, you know what I mean? You kind of have that in the back of your mind. And then for God to open that door too. And it was just an amazing confirmation that this is what he wanted me to pursue. All those years of, going through all that rejection was for a purpose. And I don't know, it was pretty amazing.
What did you learn from those rejections?
I'm glad, honestly, that I went through that, because it really forced me to kind of dig into if this is really what I should be doing. And it made me question that a lot in good ways and bad ways. But I spent a lot of time in prayer after every rejection. Like, okay, God, is this really what you want me to do? Are they right? Or are you right? Or is this like, you're not going to lead me down a path just to beat me down. Like, that's not who you are. So these rejections are for my good somehow. I just don't know it. I just doesn't feel very good right now. But it sent me back to God again and again and again. And my relationship with him grew so much during those years that I would not, like, looking back, I wouldn't trade those rejections for anything. But just because of how much I grew in my faith and how much I learned to surrender and trust through all of that. So that was the biggest thing I learned. But I look back on those years of like, oh, that was hard, but it was a really good time.
That's great.
Wow, that's really encouraging. I think especially for those of us who are in the querying process, it's very encouraging.
Yeah. Oh, good.
that kind of helps me segue into, we're talking about God and how he works in our lives, and the Christian genre of like the Christian fiction genre. One of the things I've always struggled with is how much do you allow God to be a character in your story? So in the book, it seems like one of the important themes is we don't know how God is going to act. Like sometimes God provides this healing, and then sometimes he doesn't. And I think that's a really beautiful and nuanced look at it. And so when you're writing these stories, obviously there's facts that of, like God definitely did this thing, and then other times where you have to kind of interpret. And so how do you balance that? Like, I'm even just thinking about it as a spiritual practice of not manipulating God or making God do things that he wouldn't do, but still revealing the character of God.
Yeah. I don't know, honestly. Like like I said before, I didn't start this story of like, oh, I'm going to write this story and teach everybody all these things about God. Like not in my mind at all. Like I don't consider myself that wise to even try to do that. But kind of as I was writing this story, I was kind of wrestling with these questions too of like, why did God let this happen to Valentine? Why does God let, missionaries, why does God let bad things happen to missionaries? They could do amazing things for him if, he would have just intervened there. And just realizing, just kind of wrestling through those questions of why doesn't God answer all the prayers? And why does he say no? And is he really good? Or, like I was wrestling through those questions myself. And so these characters are wrestling through these questions. And in his word, in the Bible, we know that God is good and that he works all things together for good. And the Bible is full of a lot of things that are hard and hard to understand that these things could happen. And we see throughout all of Scripture, all the stories are telling the big redemption story of eventually, one day, it is going to be made right. And, we can look through all these stories and they might not end happily here, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the story. And that's kind of what I came to, is that God is not our genie. If he answered every single prayer the way I wanted him to because it was good for me, well, then I'm the one in power. I'm the one in control. And, as a parent too, just knowing that my kids ask for things all the time and they're not bad things, but I can see like, oh, well, if I give you this and this and this and this every single time, it's not going to end up well for you later. You're going to be sick or you're going to be, whatever. And I can see that because I'm an adult and I have lived some life, so I can see that. And just think how much more God sees and how much more he knows what's best for us. And it might not be fun in the moment, but he can work all things out for good. We really do have to trust him. And that is hard because it's hard to see through some of the tragedy to the hope on the other side. But
yeah, I think that's a great answer. It's very character focused. So it's because as you were wrestling with those questions, the characters are wrestling with those questions. And so it feels very real, and it doesn't offer like, this is the answer, but it provides that hope and that assurance of the things that we do know. And I feel like it does a really good job of that. And as you were saying with hope after tragedy, one of my favorite topics is happy endings in stories, because Aldous Huxley has an essay on the myth of the happy end, or the myth of tragedy, that tragedy is actually, it's a lie when a story ends on a tragic moment, because it refuses to acknowledge that life goes on after the tragedy. And so I don't want to give any spoilers for the book, but I just love how you're able to do that so well.
Oh, well, thank you.
And I think it's a really important thing. And I love that you're drawn to those dark times too, for that reason, because it's showing, hey, there's these tragic things, but then there's always hope after.
Yeah, you said that really well.
Oh. How do you? Okay, I have another question that is a little bit like going in a different direction, which is, I just asked about like how do you write with like the character of God, but like when you're writing historical fiction and you know you have these characters who, and you said some of them are completely like they existed for sure. We know that they were there. We have other characters who you created because they fit the story, and you needed their perspective. How do you choose your cast, and then how do you make sure that, like, I would feel so frozen writing about a character, a historical figure, and being like, I'm gonna get this person wrong, or so. How do you give yourself the freedom to just write these characters without really knowing exactly how things went?
Yeah, that part is hard, and also it was a little bit easier with Valentine because there aren't firsthand writings. Like he didn't leave any writings behind. We don't really have any, eyewitness accounts of him. We don't have his story even written down until like hundreds of years after his death. So we don't have a lot of detail for him. So it was a little bit like, okay, if I get something wrong, I know the big part of the story, I can get that. So the details, if I get something wrong, nobody's going to know because we don't know. So there was a little bit of freedom in that. But it was just kind of looking at, even to decide his personality type and, things like that was, okay, well, kind of looking at his story and like, what kind of person would have done this? What kind of personality would you have to do this kind of thing? So that was probably the biggest thing to wrestle over was, okay, who is he based on what we know of his actions, and how might he have responded in other situations? So that was, and same with the book that's coming out, As Sure as the Sea. Nikolas has those same kind of things as Valentine. He doesn't leave any writings behind. His story's written down hundreds of years later. But we know these, vague outlines of stories. So kind of inferring like, okay, what kind of person would he have to be to do this? What might have his past have been like to make him act like this? So that's kind of where I start. And then as far as the how to choose the rest of the cast, most of the people in Of Love and Treason were real people, even down to like the family where Valentine's church meets, the family who owns that house. They were real people. I did make up one of their sons, which is Valentine's friend, Cato. And Titus I made up, and Beatrix. Everybody else is pretty much real. So
Titus is such an important character that
he is.
Like, I think of that specifically as a made-up character, but you chose to have his perspective because it's so important to the story.
It is. I wrote the story, a couple drafts of the story without him, like completely without him. And my husband was reading it. I was like, there's something missing, and I don't know like why this story isn't like, it's not working very well. He's like, well, what if you had a soldier's perspective? What if you had like the perspective of the guy hunting Valentine? And so I have to give Phil credit because he came up with with the idea to put Titus in the book, and it was he became my favorite character after that. It was just getting to see his journey and where he's coming from, and his beliefs be challenged and changed, and kind of having to wrestle over that. He was a lot of fun.
I didn't know in the beginning like how important he would be, and then by the end I'm like, oh, he's so important, and like did become like one of my favorite characters, and so it was executed very well as well. So you don't have to just give your husband the credit, but that's awesome that he thought of that.
So here's a rare opportunity because we have author and someone who just finished the book a half hour ago, right?
Yeah.
So Titus was one of your favorite characters. Could you tell that it was Jamie's favorite character by reading it?
I don't think I would have said it was like your favorite character, but I could definitely see, especially by the end, like that this character, kind of like I just said, like became so important. Yeah, I don't know if I would have said that like he was one of your favorite characters. Well, I'm sure, like, as an author, like, he's probably the third most important character. No, third or fourth. But, well, you can answer that.
But now that you know you're not, but now you know that you're not surprised for sure.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Interesting. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I so badly wanted him to have a happy ending.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I fought really hard for that.
Yeah, I love that. Every story needs some redemption as well, and I feel like that was one of the things that he brings to the story.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
So I just want to say, like, I'm on the verge of tears because this is so powerful to watch.
Oh,
to watch Jamie getting choked up, and then to watch you, who just finished the book, and it's clearly so powerful. And so I don't know. I'm an audience watching the audience watch the author, and it's very emotional because God's all in that, in between this goofy little 3 screens on a computer. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep.
That's all. I just had to emote.
I will say too that I haven't really read many Christian fiction. Well, that may be unfair. I should say that I have seen a lot that they do try to have easier answers, and so I really liked the complexity of this one. That it was really thought provoking. Like, I'm going to be thinking about it still. So I love the way that you executed that. I think it's so well done.
Well, thank you. I feel like for some things there aren't easy answers. Like, you know, for a lot of it, writing it was like, well, who am I to come up with why God lets things happen? You know,
right.
We just
right.
all we can really lean on is the fact that he loves us and he is good. And, you know, I mean, he's a lot of other things too. He's just and righteous and sovereign, but all of those things come to play in a way where we're just not in control. We just have to trust that he has our best interest at heart. So for me to try to come up with a cut and dry answer of why things happen is, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really neat that these themes, like you said, came out as you were writing, that it wasn't like you set out to write a story about that, but the nature of the story brings up those questions.
Mm-hmm.
Did you feel that happening with your most recent book as well? Like, as you were writing it, you were discovering kind of what this book was really about?
Yes and no. So the second book, nobody tells you the second book is just going to put you through the ringer like none other. Like, you know, I had 6 years, like I had all the time in the world to write of Love and Treason.
Yeah.
And, you know, I could take my time and I could rewrite it as many times as I wanted. And, you know, book 2, I was under deadline. So I had a vague idea of what I thought it was going to be. And, you know, I'm a plotter. So I plotted everything out. It looked really good on paper. Like, I got this. And I started writing and it wasn't working. And I fought with it so long, to the point where, like, I didn't even know if I could tell a story. Like, I had no idea. Like, it was like, maybe that first book was just a fluke and I actually don't know how to write or tell a story or anything. It made me just question everything, but then also just keep running back to God over and over and over again. Like, you think, I thought mistakenly, like, once I got a writing contract, like, I would be confident. Like, I've got this, you know, I know how to write a book. And then you realize, oh, I'm still wrestling with it. Like, please, Lord, do I know how to write a book? And can you help me write a book? And, like, I really don't got this. But this story, I knew from the beginning, as soon as, like, I knew who Nikolas was. And then I read this thing about Mediterranean coral divers. And I immediately knew my heroine was going to be a coral diver. And I knew her name. I knew her backstory. I knew what she looked like. I knew her personality. Like, in a moment, she popped into my head. And I also knew what she was going to be wrestling with and what her, you know, secret was and the thing. And I was like, oh no, I don't want to go there. That seems really hard. And I don't think I can pull her through, you know, like I don't think I can get her from here to the end of the book. So I tried any other thing she could wrestle with for months. Like, okay, well, no, I'm gonna this will be her struggle, and then you know that didn't work, and then I don't know, well, maybe this one will be, and all the while in the back of my head, it was like I know it needs to be the other thing, but I did not want to go there because that seemed really big and really scary, and I didn't feel qualified, and I told God, like, I don't want to write this. I don't want her to struggle with that, and I was like, it's too big for me. I can't do it, and he like very clearly was like, but it's not too big for me. Like I can get somebody from that to the end. Like I can do that. So it took a long time before I surrendered that and went back to what I knew I should have written all along. And really, even up to the point of where I turned the story in, I didn't know if I even had a full story there. Like I had written so many drafts, like I couldn't even see the story anymore through the mess. And it wasn't until, we went through the edits, we went through developmental edits, and I got the galleys back, and I had some time, you know, between the last edit and when I got the galleys to read for the, you know, look through it for the final time. That was when I feel like God took off all the blinders or the clutter that I had when I was looking at the story and let me see the story for the first time. And I was like, oh my goodness, there really is a story here. I didn't see it. Like it was just, I felt like I was writing the story blind the whole time. But it was a very hard story to write, but it's just God. It's a God thing that this one is even here. So,
wow.
But I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I'm so glad I asked because that's not what I was expecting. And like, that's a beautiful story of how these books come together. Like, that's powerful.
It's a shame that Emily's not allowed to read any books that have divers in them.
So not true.
The book comes out today, and sorry, Emily.
So I've written a fantasy novel that I'm querying that is about divers, but in a fictional or like fantastical world. And so when you said that, I was like, oh, okay, now that like you'd already sold the book, but now I'm like, now I have to read it. So I love that, and I love like awesome. It is hard to create conflicts for your characters that you don't know how to get them out of. And it's so easy to just stray from. I've definitely done that. Like just gone, let's not go there because I don't know what to do with that. And so that's powerful that when you said like God said he wasn't too big or it wasn't too big for him. Like that is so powerful. And I love that. And I love how the writing process just changes you.
Yeah, I didn't think going into it, I was like, oh, writing is fun. It's something I love. And I didn't realize it was going to like challenge me in my pride and my, everything at every step of the way and just be a refining process. So, which is good, but
what was your,
not something I expected at the beginning.
What was your manager or your agent saying? Because you said you didn't see the story until you saw the galleys and the blinders were lifted. What was your agent or editor even saying during that process? Were they seeing the story before you did, or they like what were they saying?
Yeah, I think honestly, they were telling me that it was good. This is not trash, I promise. And they're like, I don't know, you feel like you guys are probably lying.
Oh my gosh.
So that's kind of how our conversations went.
Wow.
But yeah, I feel like they saw the potential of this. When I turned it in, it was legitimately a mess. We had a lot of developmental edits to do on it, but they saw the story. They saw where I meant to go, where the story should be going. And they really encouraged. They were like, okay, this is great. Like, we need to pull this out. And they were so amazing with just kind of leading the story to its full potential and seeing it when I couldn't, and not trying to change it, not trying to make me do something I didn't want to do. It was very much like, wow, okay, we see this, like, keep going. It was, they're amazing. Yeah. So even if I didn't quite believe them at first.
More evidence that we write better together, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Sometimes we can't see it. Like, even when you said like your agent believed in you, like, I have people who believe in my book when I don't. You know, like, who are like, no, you really do have something here. And that's why I believe in sharing our work and asking for that feedback. It's so important.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't think I could have gone through that whole query process if I hadn't had a group of, critique partners and writers who were, in my circle and who had read it and who were just encouraging me and praying for me all along the way. We were doing all the same thing for each other too. And just to have that community and that closeness and just that encouragement is huge. I don't know how anybody could do it without it. I couldn't. So yeah, it's very important.
I love that so much. I think, are we ready for a call to action, Jon Meyers? Do you have another question?
I have a final question.
Okay, I'm going to save my final question for the Patreon, if that's okay.
Okay, I'm not. I have a final question for the episode. And I'm going to give you an out, Jamie, so you don't have to answer, which I never do. I feel like there's something that you want to say that hasn't come out in this interview. And like where you almost said something, and I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's something that just goosebumpy that you have to get out. And if I'm wrong, then tell me I'm wrong. There's your out, but I don't think I'm wrong. So what is it?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm not trying to hold anything back on purpose.
Okay.
No pressure at all.
Yeah.
No, I gave her the out. I can be wrong. All right, go to the call to action.
Sorry, I was thinking if I wanted to ask.
Oh, wait, there's a question. Emily, you've been holding this question back.
No, I was just...
That's it.
That's what it was. I got the wrong person in the wrong screen. That's what it was.
Before the call to action, do you have any final just advice for people who are pursuing Christian fiction or historical fiction?
Just that if God has given you a story that you are passionate about and you feel like this is it's the story of your heart, you are most passionate about it, you feel like God's leading you to it, even if other people are like, no, there's no market for it, there's no, write something else, this is not what we want at this time, keep pursuing it, because you don't know where God's going to take it. I mean, that's my experience. It's like he put this story in my heart and I pursued it, even though everyone else said, no, this is not going to go anywhere and it'll never be published. There's no market for it, no readers, nothing. Like, just keep going, because if God has put that call, like, he's not going to lead you to failure. You're going to learn something from it. You're going to grow from it. It's not for nothing. So whether or not you end up with a book at the end of the journey, like, see what God is trying to do in your life and in your walk with him along the way. It's never for nothing.
That's perfect. I think that's a wonderful way to end this conversation. And Jamie, do you have a call to action for our listeners?
Okay. I would say practice adding detail and descriptions to your things by seeing if you can add one word that changes everything, that makes you see an everyday object in a different way. And try it when just one word, whether it's, you're describing a chair. What kind of chair is it? Is it a lumpy chair? Is it a battered chair? Is it, what can you do to make your reader see that chair in a different light? And then how would your character see that chair or that object, that thing? What descriptions would they use? What reveals something about your character in that word that they would use? So I think that's a good way to add character and description and draw out things in your character's point of view.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
Listeners, I would love those, like, even just a 1-sentence, 2-sentence description that came from that exercise. If y'all want to send that to us, you can respond in the comments on social media when we share this episode, or you can go to writebettertogether.com/podcast and find this in the show notes and respond there. And there's another way that I'm forgetting. Oh, in the YouTube comments. You can also do the YouTube comments. Well, thank you so much, Jamie. That was a wonderful conversation. I'm so glad you got to join us.
Fantastic.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. This has been a lot of fun.
So powerful.
Love it.
And we're back. Wow. Like, I already said during the interview that I was crying, but to watch, we've had other authors where we've read the books before, and but to watch you interact with her and say things that, you know, rang her bell, or she said things that rang your bell. It was so powerful to watch Holy Spirit bounce back and forth between those two, and it was hard for me to even like say things at times.
Oh,
it was amazing.
The things she said was just so powerful, and it's interesting to me that she seems to, like, I just read characters written by her, and I can see her in her characters now.
Oh,
like and how she talks and how she thinks, and like she said about like the questions that she has, and they're asking the same questions, and so I think that's really neat. She's a very hopeful, very wonderful person.
Yeah, and just like Lenita Smith impacted our next book, this is going to impact it, because I felt, I wrote down hope. I felt that there needs to be some more hope in there. And I guess the one last thing I want to say about it is that when I asked her about, because you've already seen it, audience, when I asked her about her team believing in her in the second book when she wasn't sure yet, and then God took off the blinders and revealed the story when she got the galleys back, but the team already knew before she did. Well, the team was also orchestrated, right? She got it rejected for 1.5 years, and before the first book anyway, and then so the team that she has now, those people were called in to be in her circle. So we have to be aware of that, who belongs in our circle and who doesn't belong in our circle. And they liked her first book, but didn't like this book. But
or said nobody wants this book right now. Like, nobody wants to read this historical period. Yeah, I think that's a really good takeaway. Who's in your circle?
That was so, man, I'm gonna cry again.
But also people who are honest when they do, because you know, there are some times when people are right to say, hey, I think you're going in the wrong direction. You know, we can listen to those people as well, but we have to have discernment. You know, you don't want somebody who's always telling you you're doing a great job and this is perfect and you're going to be successful, right? We need people who are honest when it hurts and when it helps.
And she said that in the early drafts of the new book.
Yeah.
That was happening.
Yeah, that's excellent.
Yep. Very
All right, you want to be cheered up?
Do I ever?
Hey, Jon Meyers.
Yes.
This is our Valentine's episode. So, of course, we're going to talk about Valentine's Day. Jamie already shared a lot about the history of Valentine's Day, but this particular thing is the question that I'm going to ask you. What do birds and Valentine's Day have to do with each other?
Well, birds and Valentine's Day have a long history of coexisting, because when you see that cherub dude and he's always got a heart with a big bow on the heart, you know, or like you get a box of candy that's in a heart shape, it's got a big bow on it. Well, it's the birds that tie the bow onto the box or onto the heart that the cherub is carrying around. Doves, I believe. Lovebirds.
I love lovebirds. They're so cute and so silly.
So they're the ones that tie the bows on thing for Valentine's Day. That's probably in Jamie Ogle's book.
Yeah.
That's historically true.
Nothing you said was necessarily wrong, but it's not what I was looking for.
No, it's
not. So I'm looking at an article about just kind of like general facts about Valentine's Day on goodhousekeeping.com. Valentine's Day, like many holidays, originated as a pagan holiday. This one particularly for fertility, and I'm not going to go into detail about what they did because you don't want to know. But they
because I have no idea.
But then so this was celebrated on February 15th in ancient Rome. So it's still like Roman based. And then they say it gets a little murky, but in the 1300s, it became officially associated with love. And this is because Pope Gelasius outlawed the celebration of Lupercalia, which was I don't know, I'm probably not pronouncing any of these right, but it was the original like pagan holiday. And then a little later, much later, it says in the Middle Ages, it was believed that February 14th was the start of the bird's mating season, which probably depends on where you're from, right? I think here it would be much later. And then Chaucer, it was the author Chaucer who wrote a poem that associated Valentine's Day, birds, and romance in a poem that he wrote in 1375. So once again, authors make their way into his shaping history. The oldest record we have of a Valentine being sent was in the 15th century when Charles, the Duke of Orleans, wrote his wife a poem. And then we get the first mass-produced Valentines in 1840s. So that long ago, 1840s was when we were getting actual mass-produced Valentines.
Gutenberg himself. That's why that was the first mass-produced ones came, obviously after Gutenberg invented the printing press. That's why he invented the printing press, so that he had so many lovers that he could send them all.
No
way. He didn't have time to be writing all those love letters, and so he invented the printing press.
No way. That's crazy.
I just made that up.
Okay, that makes me feel better. I was like, what are you talking about?
I slandered Mr. Gutenberg's name.
I'm not going to trust anything else you ever say.
Good. That's probably wise.
But yeah, ever since, people have been associating this day, the February 14th, with romance, with sharing gifts. And I think I grew up celebrating Valentine's Day at first as a friend's holiday and a family holiday. And then once I was married, I'm kind of like Jamie. We don't really go out of our way to do anything special on Valentine's Day, but every once in a while we'll get ourselves we'll go out to eat or something. But I love that this book exists because it reminds people of what really happened, and even just the important, marriage was so important to these people, to the Christians, that they thought it was worth dying for, really. And part of the reason was because their marriage ban was to keep soldiers from getting attached to, too attached to women and family and stuff. And then also, if the soldier died, then he wouldn't be having to leave behind a bunch of stuff. So they wanted marriage. Part of the reason why marriage was so important was because if the soldiers died, they wanted the widows to be taken care of. And if you weren't married, then that wasn't going to be the case. So they really believed in the importance of it, and obviously risked their lives for it.
Wow, that got all serious at the end there.
Well, that's this book. It's very serious. There's a lot of, like she talks about, there's a lot of darkness in this time period, and there's a lot of darkness in the book. But that's also what makes it so beautiful is that she's able to shine a light through it and show it that these people were faithful to God and showed hope through it.
Find hope through the darkness.
Yep.
So were you in kindergarten? Were you in homeschool at kindergarten?
I was homeschooled all the way to college.
Okay. So my first Valentine's Day would have been at kindergarten, obviously. And then you get, you have a white paper bag and then everyone gives you Valentines.
We had boxes. So, because I was in a tutorial, so we would go once a week and we had a tutorial and we had boxes that we would do a box creating contest. And then the boxes had little slots. And so people could just like put the cards in the slots. And then we had the pre-made Valentines. So you could give away Lord of the Rings Valentines or Scooby-Doo Valentines or whatever.
Yeah, that we had. Same.
Yeah.
So in college, my students, whatever they read the weekend, whether it was 100 or 300 about research or whatever, or if it was lit, whatever their weekend reading assignment was, when they came back in on the Monday or the Tuesday of Valentine's Day or the week of Valentine's Day, they would come into a box of sweethearts with the words on it. And they would have to write an essay using and they all got a glue stick. In college, they would have to write an essay reflecting on what they read over the weekend, using the hearts in the sweetheart box. And
that could have been today's game.
Welcome to college. and they loved it. And I still have some of them. I should have dug them out for today. Because some of them are hilarious. Some of them are just like, they just used whatever letters they had. I mean, whatever, love me or kiss me, whatever words they had. But some of them did a really good job. I still have some of them.
That's so funny.
There you go. Welcome to college.
That should have been today's game.
That's why I was beloved.
Hold on. I just realized that I don't have a prize for today's game.
Oh, well, while you're looking for the prize, pay attention with one of your ears because I'm teaching you why this boy right here is crying.
Oh,
look at that boy. Oh my gosh. He's crying because the dog would not sit still long enough for him to eat her tail.
Oh my goodness.
Poor Winnie.
Poor Winnie. She doesn't know what to expect.
So that's a warning for the baby and you and Winnie.
It's going to be really interesting to see how she reacts to
especially if baby boy Brooks tries to eat her tail.
She really hates loud noises too. Okay, I have a prize. So if you want to continue... Wait, no.
Eating your dog's tail.
If you want to
find hope in the darkness. If you'd like to know more about finding hope in the darkness,
there you go. Then follow us, subscribe to the podcast so that you can keep being updated. You can also have episodes and a great newsletter by Jon Meyers sent to your email if you subscribe. So if you go to writebettertogether.com, there is a subscription box there. We also have webinars and stuff coming out that you will be notified of when those happen if you are subscribed. Also, we would love to hear from you. Like when we read responses from people in the beginning of our episode, that's just people who respond to us, and we love to share those, and we love to share people's stuff in our show notes. So reach out to us, respond to a call to action, write a review. We'll read those too. And thank you in advance.
You can even send us a review of something that we have nothing to do with, and we'll read it. No, not really. One of our they could write a review of one of our guest books, and we would read it.
Would love that. Yeah.
They could review our interviews with the guests.
Whoa.
Why didn't you ask her this? Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think that means it's time for the final act. Okay. I love how you do the sound effect and then I have to still play the sound effect. Your prize today.
Yes.
Is this little box.
Oh.
That says Montgomery. I don't know why. No, it doesn't. It doesn't say Montgomery. It says Monterey. It says Monterey. I've never apparently actually read it.
Have you been to Monterey?
No.
Have you been to Montgomery?
No.
Yes.
Inside this box.
You drive through Montgomery. We went to go to Florida.
You're right. Well, no. We go
Montgomery,
through
Alabama.
Georgia.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
We
All
do.
Right. In that box is a love letter.
Is a letter of apparently me trying to write my name when I was a kid, like little. And we found that at my grandma's house. So she saw this little thing where I was writing my name and saved it in this little box.
After flying to Monterey to buy the box.
Yeah, I guess so. The game today is called Spontaneous Meet Cute.
Oh my goodness.
So before we started recording,
Yes.
I told Jon Meyers to come up with a place, a character with a goal, and a story element / obstacle.
And I had no idea why I was doing that.
So do you want to tell us what you wrote down?
All right, so tell me each thing and I will tell you the answer.
A place.
All right, the moon. I didn't know it was going to be a love story.
No, it's great. It's great. This is why I didn't tell you what it was. Okay, who's your character?
Oh, a girl Dalmatian. Does she need a name?
I should have told you that it needed to be a person.
A girl Dalmatian named Dottie. Get it? Okay, Dottie? She's a Dalmatian and her name's Dottie.
We'll say that. Are we okay with a humanoid Dalmatian?
A woman with spots all over her?
No, but like...
That's leprosy.
I mean like in a story where dogs talk.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Yes,
we're doing dogs.
It's
okay.
a talking dog.
And
well,
what
I don't know if the other people are going to be dogs, but that one is a dog. Dottie the Dalmatian.
What is her goal?
To get off the moon before so right now it's a full moon, but then when it's waxing, waning is when it gets smaller.
Yeah.
Before it wanes to a no moon.
Oh, okay.
A sliver of a crescent.
Okay. So like an astronaut Dalmatian.
I didn't say astronaut. I don't know how she got up there.
Oh, okay.
Someone said fetch and she really fetched.
Okay, and then an obstacle / like story element.
I'm trying to make fetch happen again. All right. So the obstacle to her getting off the moon?
Yeah.
Lack of dog food.
Okay. So, Dottie the Dalmatian meets we'll say Rufus the Labrador.
Oh, that's going to make it Farmer Bear.
And I wrote this down before, so...
Oh, okay.
I'm not changing it.
So it was Rufus a boy?
Yeah. Rufus,
the Labrador.
Rufus the Labrador is a bird watcher trying to capture the perfect picture of a rare bird on the moon.
That would be a rare bird.
It would be very rare. So now with those story elements, you now need to come up with a meet cute in which these two characters start.
But you picked the boy?
I told you to pick a character, and then I was just going to I created another character.
Okay. What, a Labrador is a black shiny retriever?
They're not a retriever, but they're...
Labrador retriever. That's literally what they're called, I think. Like a golden retriever, a Labrador retriever?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Golden retrievers have like that long hair, and Labradors have like that really short hair.
Google the Labrador retriever.
Oh my goodness.
What's going to matter for my meet cute?
Okay, you're right. It's Labrador retriever.
Oh, I was? Oh, yay, I win. I win the box with the do I get the letter? Oh, that's not how I win the game?
No. So, all
right.
If for our listeners, a meet cute is the moment in a romance where the characters first meet, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it doesn't, but it sparks something.
Okay. I should have made him a St. Bernard. But, all right. So, Dottie the Dalmatian is on the moon with no food, and the moon is waning. So that when it gets down a little slice, it's going to push her off the surface of the moon, because that's how waning moons.
Oh wow,
that's how waning moons work.
This is like a Wallace and Gromit, the moon is cheese kind of story.
Yeah, and so we already established she got up there because someone threw a ball and played fetch. Because I'm trying to make fetch happen again. And then so Rufus, what am I doing? Just they got to meet. That's it.
Yeah, but in a cute way.
What's not cute about a Rufus the lab meeting? I should have made him a Yorkie. Oh no, you made him a lab. Meeting Dottie the Dalmatian. All right, so what kind of dog is a Labrador, Emily?
A Labrador retriever?
A retriever. Oh, imagine that. And how did Dottie wind up on the moon? By fetching a ball, or a stick or something. So Rufus was playing frisbee, as one does when you're a retriever. And you won't believe what happened. So Rufus is playing frisbee on the shores of Cape Canaveral.
Whoa.
And a branded unnamed rocket is supposed to launch that day, but I won't name the name of whatever corporation owns that rocket. And it's also the same day when do the pelicans migrate?
Just in the winter.
You saw them flying over you a couple weeks ago. So
just January.
All right. So it's January, and that makes sense because that's when you launch your rockets in January. And so I don't know who threw the frisbee. That's the problem. But oh well, it's irrelevant to the story. And so whoever's throwing the frisbee is like, longer, go out 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 longer. How many times can I say go out longer? Go out longer, go out longer. So Labrador Rufus the retriever is way out there. Frisbee's thrown. Guess where it winds up? In a pelican's mouth. That's where else would it happen? Where else would a frisbee wind up when there are migrating pelicans at Cape Canaveral? Is Cape Canaveral in Florida, or is that in Texas?
I'm not sure.
So this is not a geography test. This is a meet cute test. So pelican in the mouth takes off because he's startled because it's a boy pelican. And so takes off because he's startled. Rufus leaps into the air to grab the pelican and catches the pelican's leg in his mouth. Rufus is a pup. Rufus is not a full-grown retriever. The pelican takes off, pulling Rufus behind him, just as the rocket Cape Canaveral takes off.
Wow, oh my goodness.
The rocket is pointy on the front. It harpoons the poor pelican. Sorry, a pelican was harmed in the in the making of this story. And now what is Rufus gonna do? He can't let go of the pelican leg because then he'll fall to his death. We already killed a pelican. We can't kill a beloved dog. And so rockets do what rockets do. They go up by the moon, and as the rocket orbits the moon, the harpooned pelican rips into the Labrador. Not only is he dead, he's now ripped in two. The Labrador falls to the ground when the pelican is ripped in half. Of course, the frisbee falls out of the pelican's mouth, and the Labrador catches it before he hit, and in one fell swoop, the Labrador Rufus grabs the frisbee, falls to the surface of the moon with the frisbee in his mouth, right in front of Dottie the Dalmatian, and says, "Hi, I'm Rufus. Pleased to meet you. I brought you this frisbee.
Wow.
That's a pretty cute way to meet.
I knew I could count on you with this. I did. It's not anything what I expected, but
right.
That's what makes it so great.
It was the first thing that came to my mind.
I love it.
I didn't try to change anything.
Yeah, it's great.
Did I win?
You win the Monterey box and my signature.
So now I know how to spell your name when you were 5.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was great. Thanks.
Well,
that was fun.
Happy early Valentine's Day to people if you're listening to this early, or if you're listening to this just at a random time of the year. Love is still relevant. So I hope you go out and love each other today.
Look what's right here. From Riverdale, the graphic novel. He loves me, she loves me not.
Nice.
Perfect. I didn't even plan that. It was one of the books that I got on the thing.
Well, listeners,
we
couldn't have done it without you.
Couldn't have done it without you.